kind of tell you a little bit about where we left off. I know it's been a few days, so we just did. We're relating how the radical and extreme times lead to radical and extreme leaders like Adolf Hitler. We talked about how the stock market crash led to a global economic crisis, and things were already bad in Germany as it was. So Hitler had been biding his time, even spending some time in prison and writing a book called Mein Kampf. And once the 1929 stock market crash occurred, he knew it was his time to hit the campaign trail again, and he does so. And the Nazi Party garners a significant portion of the vote. About 18% of the vote in the Reichstag belonged to the Nazi Party. Okay, so all the while, Hitler had been creating organizations and doing propaganda type things to increase his followers within the party. And one of the things that he creates are Jugendbunds. Jugendbund simply means youth league. It's a youth league. If you're going to try to control the minds of a mass population of people, it's much easier to control the minds of children. So the Jugendbund was actually, created in 1922. Well, like when they were still just a few guys in a beer hall in Munich. But these Jugendbunds are like the Nazi youth leagues. Nazi Jugendbund. Nazi youth leagues. And to be a member, not just anybody can join. It can, for the boys' leagues, it was, you had to be an Aryan, of Aryan descent, as you can tell, blonde hair, light skin, light eyes, light hair. Had to be between 14 and 18 years old. Obviously, no foreigners, no Jews, no racially inferior people, according to the Nazis. You had to pledge allegiance to the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler. And you met once a week, kind of like the Boy Scouts. Had weekly meetings. Every second Sunday, they'd go on hiking trips, spending time out in the wilderness, learning skills. They established libraries with very carefully selected books. And it quickly grew in popularity. Something that most children wanted to be a part of. Once Hitler gained some political notoriety, especially after these elections that occur in 1930, they changed the name to the Hitlerjugend, Hitler Youth, Hitlerjugend, instead of Jugendbund, Hitlerjugend. So the whole purpose of this is to build the Nazi Party of the future. And it wasn't just for boys. In 1928, Hitler created a league for girls, a Hitler Youth League for girls called the Bund Deutsche Model. Bund Deutsche Model. I believe you can see it here. This is Bund Deutsche Model. It's a league of German girls. League of German girls. Or the Hitler Youth League for girls. Bund Deutsche Model. Okay? So, he's turning these kids at a very young age, but eventually they grow up, they become much older, and they become adults that, have pledged allegiance to Adolf Hitler. And then the 1932 presidential election happens. And Hitler wants to replace the president of Germany, and his name was President von Hindenburg. And he was not the only, Hitler and Hindenburg were not the only people running for the office. You also had Ernst Thälmann here on the left. He's running as the Soviet party leader, or as a communist. And Hitler ran a very modern presidential election campaign. He used airplanes to travel throughout Germany, give multiple speeches throughout Germany every day. He even used technology to spread his message. He made record discs of his speeches, like big LPs. You guys seen them? I got one up there. It's Kennedy. In that is a big circular piece of vinyl that you can play on a record. You guys know what I'm talking about? Okay. He made those and had them distributed throughout Germany so that even people that don't come to his rallies could sit and listen to his speeches. So he's using technology to spread his message. And his message is simple. He plays on people's fears of starvation, which were real fears of starvation, social care, unemployment. He paints a gloomy, doomy picture for the future of Germany if he's not elected. Once again, the political parties begin to fight each other in the streets, in a semi-military battles. And it's mainly the Nazi Party versus the Communist Party. So the public order is obviously beginning to break. President Hindenburg wins the election. So both Hitler and Ernst Thälmann are unsuccessful in their bid. And it seems as though Hitler's popularity and his party were once again failing. And his only hope was that if the existing government were to suffer a major setback. And in the beginning of 1933, his opportunities to succeed were becoming limited. And then he receives an unexpected offer. As a secret government conspiracy was being cooked up within the Nazi government. Within the German government. Hitler was invited to the former Chancellor of Germany's house, Franz von Papen. This man, Franz von Papen. Hitler was invited to his house. And basically, he wanted to invite Hitler to become the next Chancellor of Germany. Now, it's an elected position. But he believed that a state could be formed out of the Nazi Party. Now, the Chancellor of Germany is kind of like the leader of the Reichstag, not the president. Okay, the president is the president. So it would kind of be like being the Speaker of the House, if we could compare it in some way. All right. So they gave their plan to President von Hindenburg, who was an extremely elderly man, very old at this time, very unaware of the dangers of the Nazi Party, and he was confused by the plan, but he went along with it. And then in 1933, Hitler was appointed as Chancellor of Germany by President Hindenburg. And they thought that they would, what they're hoping to accomplish by this is that they know that Germany, that they know the Nazis are somewhat dangerous, but they believe that they could appease Hitler and the Nazi Party by giving him this position, that he won't, he'll just kind of be happy with what he's got. And, they thought that they could work together, that the Nazis would work together with the other political parties to do what was best for Germany. And Hitler, we hear the name Hitler and we think evil, hateful, horrible person, and he was. But in 1933, Hitler was seen as a great man in Germany. This was a guy who came from nothing. He was not born wealthy, and he's now one of the most popular people in the entire nation of Germany. He's a self-made man. So, um, he was just an average guy who made it to the top. He was even like he was an artist that failed, and then he served in World War I and became a military guy. So, um, you know, he was seen as a great guy in Germany. Um, so Hitler began to mobilize the Nazi Party, and within his party, he began to fear that he's a paranoid guy. What does the word paranoia mean? Or paranoid? What does that mean? Something bad's going to happen to you. Somebody's out to get you. Okay. He was also susceptible to bouts of paranoia, and he began to fear that he was going to have overthrow within his own organization. So he created a new elite group of bodyguards to replace the brown shirts or the Schutzstaffel. I'm sorry, or the Sturmabteilung, and he creates the SS, which is the Schutzstaffel. And they wore black uniforms. You see, this is Heinrich Himmler. He's one of the leaders of the Schutzstaffel, one of Hitler's closest and most loyal allies, Heinrich Himmler. And he is the leader of the SS, or the Schutzstaffel. All of these people were totally loyal to Hitler. Not really even the Nazi Party, just Hitler. And soon he had 50,000 members that would help Hitler gain and keep power. And this was formed in 1933. When did those Hitler Youth Leagues start? 1922. That's 11 years of training children to be loyal to Adolf Hitler. If you're 10, 11, 12 years old when you join a Hitler Youth League, 10, 11, 12 years later, you're a young person, a young man almost, or really a man. And those are the people who become the first members of the elite Schutzstaffel, those Hitler Youth Leagues. Okay? So, and the SS was completely loyal to Hitler. So President Hindenburg, in making Hitler chancellor, hoped that would appease him and quiet him down, but he was wrong, as Hitler began to send thousands of political rivals to camps for detainment. Communists, really any political party that publicly opposed him, mainly communists, would just lock them up, put them in prison for being communist. Then, mysteriously, in March of 1933, the Reichstag catches on fire. This would be like the United States Capitol catching on fire. It was not an accident. It is mysteriously set on fire. Arson. History blames the Nazis. But at the time, the Nazis blamed the communists. And the Nazis, with Adolf Hitler being the chancellor, they were the party of power. And so therefore, Hitler used it as an excuse to further condemn communists and socialists to prison. Burning down their beloved Capitol building, he and his elite Schutzstaffel, SS, begin to round up as many communists and socialists as they can within Germany and send them to prison. All the while, he also gives an order to round up and send away physically and mentally handicapped Germans to special hospitals. At these special hospitals, these Germans that have physical and mental handicaps are either sterilized or eventually killed. What is sterilized? That's right. You're unable to reproduce. Why would Adolf Hitler give such an order? What's he all about?
Elitism, like an elite race.
That's right. He wants to create an elite, superior race. And he believes that through active eugenics, euthanizing certain genes out of the gene pool of Germany, that he can eventually create a master Aryan race that with no weaknesses. No weaknesses. It's almost very Spartan. Like the Spartans used to inspect their children and throw them off the cliff if they were weak or puny, or he was going to bring that to Germany. So he called it mercy killing. Like we kill you to put you out of your misery, and now you're no longer suffering for mercy. Well, there's no such thing. No such thing. So, these special hospitals where these people were forcibly sterilized and eventually killed. This is just a forerunner to things to come, because he really hasn't even started on the Jews yet, and that begins in April of 1933, April 1st. The Nazis began a boycott. What does the word boycott mean?
You're not going to buy anything from them.
Don't purchase anything from Jewish businesses. The sign on the left here, it says Germany does not buy from Jews. That's what that sign says. And you got children holding it. Look, this is a young member of the Hitler Youth League. He's in uniform. He is a future SS guy. So, SS guards would even paint the Star of David and write Juden or Jud, meaning Jew or Jewish, on Jewish businesses, and would also post, in some cases, members of the Hitler Youth League, little boys with signs that would stand guard and not allow customers to go in. People would not be allowed to go in. Jews would also be removed from any position they had within the German government, like as civil service positions, like mailmen and, things like that. And by the end of the year, if you were a Jewish doctor or lawyer, banker, writer, you were not allowed to practice your profession anymore. What was the purpose of doing all this? At first, what was Hitler's goal? If you are a Jewish person and you see all these things going on around you, what might you be inclined to do? Leave. Okay, I have a business. I can't practice my profession. They're not going to let me have a job. Hopefully, if I have the ability, I'm going to leave. Okay? So that was initially what the goal was, but are they all capable of leaving? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not capable of just being like, okay, well, I just abandon everything here in my home and I'll just move to a foreign country. I don't have the ability to do that. Okay, I can't afford it. I can't do that. Which was the same situation that many Jews were in as well. And so over some time, over about a year and a half of the Jewish boycott on businesses, the Nazis began to ramp up the violence until on June the 30th, 1934, there is the Night of Long Knives. These two gentlemen here, this is Heinrich Himmler, he's the leader of the SS, and this is Hermann Goering. Hermann Goering. He becomes like the leader of the Luftwaffe. Anyway, on the night of long knives, this is actually an event that occurs within the party, okay, within the Nazi party. Hitler summons members of the brown shirts, his old, kind of guard, his old militia, to a villa just outside of Berlin, SA, Sturmabteilung. There, they are met by SS leaders. Himmler, Goering, the new guys who were just supremely loyal to Hitler. And they arrested the leaders of the SA. So these guys, the SS, arrest the leaders of the SA because of Hitler's paranoia. One leader of the SA in particular, his name was Rohm, R-O-H-M. They arrested him and they accused him of being a homosexual, which was also another group of people that the Aryans were rounding up and exterminating. So, Rohm is taken to a prison where he is beaten and tortured and try to get him to confess that he's a homosexual. Well, he never does because he's not. And eventually, after being beaten and tortured to try to get him to confess, they eventually just throw a pistol into him so that he can commit suicide. Well, he doesn't. Well, so eventually he and 150 others like him were rounded up and shot by the SS. So 150 of the brown shirt leaders. These are people within the Nazi Party whom Hitler is just slightly paranoid of. Altogether, about 200 people were killed. This is called the Night of the Long Knives. Most were SA officers. Some were political opponents of Hitler. But this is not something that's these are like famous people in Germany. This is like the political leadership is being rounded up and exterminated. People know what's going on. So this is a very audacious move by the Nazis and Adolf Hitler. And these actions, along with a lack of response by the ailing and elderly President von Hindenburg, all kind of fall upon Hitler and make him more powerful, give him more political power, because he's just getting away with it. He's doing whatever he wants. He has just ordered the murder of 200 people. Does he get in trouble? No, nothing. Nothing happens. So now the only thing standing between Hitler and absolute power over Germany is the 87-year-old President Hindenburg. He's old. Who is now, by this time, close to death at his villa in Prussia. So Hitler believed that, he should be the one responsible for taking over once Hindenburg passes away. But Hitler does not want to be president. He doesn't think that the role of president is suiting to him. So ultimately, when Hindenburg dies on August the 2nd, 1934, within hours of his death, the Nazis announce that the office of Chancellor and that the office of President would be combined. There was no election. No votes were tabulated. Nobody was consulted. No input was received. And Hitler creates a new office called Führer. And he becomes the Führer. F-U-H-R-O-R. The Führer. The German army was rounded up and made to swear new allegiances, not to Germany, but to Adolf Hitler, to a man. The military swore an allegiance to a man, not to a nation. So like when an American military person takes their oath, it's like, I swear to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. These guys swore to protect and defend the will and the person of Adolf Hitler, personally. So it became their sacred duty. And Hitler installed a policy called Gleichschaltung. Gleichschaltung. Gleichschaltung means forced coordination. Forced coordination. Where all the military became members of the Nazi Party, and all the military became loyal to Adolf Hitler. And it begins immediately. Begin to see the immediate Nazification of Germany. All schools became Hitler Youth Leagues. Every child in the country had to be a member. All books containing radical ideas or any book written by a Jew is to be destroyed in mass book burnings. Any youth organization, any club that had children in it became a Hitler Youth League. So if you had a chess club that you were a member of, it was now a Hitler Youth League that plays chess. Complete Nazification of the entire population of Germany. So everyone had to be a Nazi. Everyone. Forced coordination. Gleichschaltung. That's what that is. Everyone is forced to be a Nazi. What happens if you say, I don't really want to be a Nazi? Then you're a political opponent and you could be locked up just like a communist. Or worse. All right? So it's not that the German people really had a choice. But for the most part, they were okay with it. Hey, this guy's going to bring greatness. He's been telling us since 1922, let's make Germany great again. That was his campaign slogan. So Hitler, he's now in complete, total power. He has brought fascism to Germany. Total control, lots of control over the social lives of its citizens. All right. So now that he is in complete control, he wants to begin to instill and bring the political platform of the Nazi Party over Germany. Well, what is the Nazi Party all about? Do you remember what, when he first joined, when he was Corporal Hitler, when he was supposed to spy on them? What was the Nazi Party all about? Hatred of Jews. Hatred of communism. One more big thing that he really, really, really hated. Say it again. Okay. How about the Treaty of Versailles? Do you like that? No, hated it. Okay. So he begins to openly defy the Treaty of Versailles and immediately begins to rearm the German military. How many soldiers was the German military allowed to have? About 100,000. And he begins to rearm Germany and make it he wants it to be over 1 million men. Is that okay with the Treaty of Versailles? No, of course not. Who's going to stop him? Who could stop him? Who's supposed to stop him? The League of Nations. Who's not a member of that? The United States is not even a member of it, so we're not going to help. What about Germany and France? Why don't they stop him? I'm sorry, what about England and France? Why don't they stop him? What's going on in the 1930s across planet Earth? Great Depression. People really interested in getting involved with this guy when there's people starving in their own streets? Nobody's interested in that. So he's just kind of left alone. And he begins to do things like rearm Germany. He begins to reclaim land that was taken away from Germany. For example, this area here called the Rhineland, where he crosses the Rhine River and reclaims this territory that was taken from Germany as a result of the Treaty of Versailles. This area of the Rhineland is a heavily industrialized part of Germany. A lot of factories, a lot of steel production, which would be good for his war machine, which he's going to begin to build. This is a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. He takes this militarily by force. French politicians, they're upset about it. The politicians are. And so they're like, hey, French generals, go do something about it. Or, hey, Great Britain, let's go get them together. We got other stuff to do. We can't do it right now. Just let him have it, and maybe he'll be happy. Okay? It sets a precedent. It's called a policy of appeasement. Just let him have it, maybe he'll be happy. Let him have it, maybe he'll be done. Let him have it, hopefully it'll be over with. And they do this again and again and again and again until eventually he's invading Poland, a place that had nothing to do with it. He's just now expanding. Okay? All right. So, Hitler was the Fuhrer of Germany for like 41 weeks before World War II really started. Like he was around for a while. People knew what he was up to. And he, like, when it comes to the way he did foreign relations, he was like a gangster. He would just bluff and lie and bully and threaten to get his way. That's how he treated other countries. Like, he would just straight up lie to another country, like sign a treaty, put his name on a treaty, and then just totally ignore the treaty the very next day. What are you going to do about it? Basically was his attitude. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. So, the Rhineland is not the only place where Hitler believes should be Germany. He believed that also his home country of Austria should also be included in the German Reich. Hitler himself is not German. He is Austrian. And so Hitler, Austria had its own Nazi party. And Austria overthrew their own government. The Nazi party of Austria overthrew their government. And the very next day, the German military crosses the border into Germany and, without very much bloodshed, annexes Austria into Germany. It's called Anschluss. Anschluss. It's the annexation of Austria, meaning it just becomes part of the German Empire. German Reich, R-E-I-C-H, Reich. So, all Austrians who openly opposed Jews and socialists or all Austrians who openly opposed the Nazification of Austria, any Jew, any socialist, any communist, they were sent to prisons or concentration camps, which ended up being about 70,000 Austrians. Just disappeared from the population. Is the annexation of Austria, is that cool with the Treaty of Versailles? No, not cool with the Treaty of Versailles. The Allies did nothing. Britain does nothing. France does nothing. America can't do anything. And they don't do anything for fear of starting another war with Germany. And Hitler's not done. There's also the Czechoslovakian Sudetenland. All right, it's this. This is all of the Sudetenland. Today, this is the Czech. This from like here to the west is the Czech Republic, and from here to the east is Slovakia. Then, out of the Treaty of Versailles, it created a nation called Czechoslovakia. Well, Hitler and the Germans call it the Sudetenland, and the Sudetenland was basically Germany and Hitler bully the Czechoslovakian president into, giving up. Hitler makes demands of the Czech president so that he can take control of his country. Hitler goes so far as to use propaganda to incite a civil war in this man's nation. And Sudet Germans and Czechs begin fighting in the street. And Hitler gives the president of Czechoslovakia an ultimatum. You can either give up your country to me or risk war with Germany. So the Czechoslovakian president, ends up giving his land, giving his country to Germany. And the Sudetenland becomes incorporated into the German Reich. So as you can see, it was, it started out looking kind of, slender waist here. Austria gets added. Czechoslovakia gets added. And so, as the German Empire is growing. It is growing and growing and growing. All the while, what do the Allies do to stop him? Nothing. They do nothing. Until Hitler makes his boldest move yet as Führer of Germany and officially begins World War II with what? What officially is the beginning of World War II? The invasion of Poland. The invasion of Poland is what officially begins World War II, as the Germans and the Nazis want to destroy Poland to provoke Western powers into war. But one country that the Germans do not want to provoke into war just yet is the Soviet Union. Okay? Why might he not want to provoke the Soviet Union into war yet? Okay, this purple, this is the Soviet Union. Germany, Poland is part of the Allies. Okay? Why does Germany not want to provoke the Soviet Union, but he does want to provoke Western nations? Okay? If he provokes the Soviet Union, he's going to be fighting a war on both sides, East and West. And so his forces will be split. He wants to invade Poland to provoke the Western nations into war. But he doesn't want to poke this big red bear over here. Okay? Now, ultimately, he's going to eventually fight the Soviet Union. Why?
Because he wants to take over.
What's the political world of the Soviet Union? They are communists. It's like the only communist nation on earth at this time. Of course he's going to attack the Soviets. If Joseph Stalin had read Mein Kampf, he'd have known that in 1922 that he can't trust Adolf Hitler. Okay? So, what Hitler does is he signs an agreement with Stalin. It's called the Non-Aggression Pact. He signs it with Joseph Stalin in Russia. Says, I will not invade the Soviet Union. That's what Hitler says. I promise you not to invade the Soviet Union. We will be peaceful. We will be buddies. We will be friends. And to show you that my goodwill, I'm going to give you a dividend of the war booty that I get from Poland in return for you doing nothing. I'm going to give you whatever, a portion of what I get from the Polish. You get a piece of. Just all you have to do is nothing, Stalin. Sounds too good to be true if you're Stalin. But that's what they do. Okay, so Poland is an ally. They're a member of the League of Nations, which this is really what draws the other allied nations into war, like Great Britain, like France. So on September 3rd, 1939, Great Britain declares war on Germany to stand up for their ally, Poland. The French declare later that same day. Okay, so Poland itself is not, there's not a lot of large military targets in Poland. So what did the Nazis target as as the focus of their military? What did the Nazis target? Civilians. Which civilians? Jewish civilians. The Nazis intentionally bombed Jewish villages. And the Poles did have a military, but they were using World War I technology, which was okay, but compared to World War II technology, they had absolutely no chance. And also, the Nazis were using a new type of warfare. Because they were outnumbered, they had a very small military in 1939, very, very small. They were outnumbered in almost every battle. But the way in which they used their forces so fast is called blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg literally means lightning war. They would send their planes in, their tanks in, their Panzer tanks were the fastest and most advanced tanks of any country in the world, and then followed by infantry, and they would just be so fast that the Poles really had no chance. And Hitler makes Poland slaves to Germany. He enslaves the population of Poland. All the while, he kills about 95% of the population of Jews in Poland. That's an insane amount. It is hard to find a Jewish person in Poland today, where once upon a time it was a significant portion of the population. All right. Next time we will look at, after the invasion of Poland, Hitler turns his attention to Scandinavia on his movement westward.